The Gambia developed its first NIP in 2009. Then we updated the NIP in 2019. This is our third phase of update of the NIP through the Global NIP project. We launched the project in 2023. Started officially, we did our inception meeting in 2023 after developing some work plans, and 2023 to now we had national steering committee meetings. We've initiated the recruitment of consultants because in our project we have three main consultants: the lead NIP consultant, national consultant. We also have a consultant for the profile. We also want to have a consultant for legislation. So we had the recruitment of the consultant took so much time. The initial the lead consultant was pretty easy. The same guy that did the consultancy for the review in 2019 is the same guy we were able to hire to do the consultancy. So the second and the third NIP, the applicants that we received were not qualified. So the contract committee ended up rejecting their applications. Then a request was made to African Institute that this will now be subsumed within our system at the National Environment Agency. We have a research and development team unit that will now take up the work. So in the Gambia, how NIP implementation is done is that the National Environment Agency as a technical institution, subsumes the project because the enabling activity project in our hazardous chemicals and pesticide program. Once this is done, the Registrar of Pesticides and Hazardous Chemicals serves also as the national project coordinator. But internally also we have a national project coordination unit, and we also have a national project steering committee, which is coming from different institutions. So the role of the national coordinator, he will do the day in, day out implementation of the project. The project coordination unit that is internal oversees the entire work of the national project coordinator. Then the steering committee also looks at all the work and advice as well. So both of these bodies meet periodically to assess the progress of the implementation of the project. So fast forward, after we have recruited the national consultant, now we are at the phase of training, because what we do in the Gambia, when it comes to assessment of NIP and NIP inventories, we always follow a multi-sectoral approach based on where we think specific POPs can be found. Then we'll form task teams coming from these institutions, from the university, from the Gambia Bureau of Statistics, or others coming from the Gambia Revenue Authority, Customs, that looks at import and export. Because primarily Gambia does not manufacture chemicals, we rely heavily on the importation of chemicals. So therefore, the customs monitors the movement of goods, articles into the country, and the National Environment Agency, that is my institution, also forms part of the tax team, because we regulate the trade of pesticides and hazardous chemicals in the country. So therefore, these tax teams are trained. After they have been trained, they are sent out to gather information. So the information that they gather will be submitted to the project coordinator. The project coordinator reviews it, gathers the project coordination unit to review all this information, then give it to the national consultant to review the entire work, guide and coordinate, and then send us back these informations after the reports are done. So the first thing that we do is actually, after the inception meeting, there is also another meeting, stakeholder consultation meeting, where the stakeholders are informed about the activities of the NIP. Then the consultant will guide and train the tax teams that will go out to gather information to be brought in. So maybe the question is, at this stage, we'll be having a national training of the inventory teams. Then after the national inventory training, they will be dispatched to go and collect information, that is basically the inventories. So when it comes to chemicals that are in the Gambia right now, if you look at our previous NIP, we have accounted for industrial pesticides. No, how will I call it? Pesticides such as endosulfan, DDT. Some of the old chemicals, pesticides, are no longer available in country. But you may once in a while see, them maybe in the weekly markets, because this is where the trade of pesticides actually happen. So for the NIP, we have to go into these weekly markets to be able to assess what kind of pesticides they're selling. So some of the concerns that we usually have is that they are not properly labeled, they are decanted from their original containers, you know. So if you know the Gambia very well, Gambia is an agricultural country, okay? If you know the Gambia very well, it's right inside another country. I don't want to mention a country. So one of our constraints that we usually have in controlling pesticides or chemicals is the porous borders. Sometimes people call it open borders because these are imaginary borders that the communities that live along the borderlines, they don't usually see these borders. So, and chemical trade, particularly pesticides, happen mostly within these border settlements. We have a very robust, legislation, chemical legislation that's been in existence since 1994, and we have a lot of about 3 or 4 regulations underneath this legislation, and we are continuously enforcing this our borders, where pesticides comes in and goes out. So when we do inventories, most of the time, we also had experience of DDT that was used for IRS, indoor residual spraying, by the Department of National Malaria Control Program. They use pesticides for IRS or sometimes even bed net treatments for to control mosquitoes. So they had some stockpiles that are left with them. There was also cotton production in the Gambia some time back that we're using endosulfan. We will have to revisit whether these pesticides are still there. Uh, Now, the newly listed chlorpyrifos, we want to look at it, even not exclusively, but we want to look at it because before the NIP update comes in, because it's listed this year, before it enters into force will be 1 year. So before the next NIP comes in, that means that it has already entered into force. So we will also probe into looking at chlorpyrifos situation in the Gambia. We know that chlorpyrifos is extensively used in the Gambia, particularly in termites, treatment of build foundations to control termites as an insecticide, but primarily in the construction sector to control termites during foundations, or maybe treatment of wood, uh, which I'm not very sure they do a lot of export, but primarily to control foundations of buildings. So when it comes to industrial chemicals, because we're trying to set up, we have a sectoral based approach. We have crop pesticides, we have also industrial chemicals. So industrial chemicals, you may not find the importation of industrial chemicals, but we have certain industries, for example, the foam industry, that import, some solvents. We will look at them. We will look at firefighting foams. That is why the fire and rescue service are part of the tax team, so that we can easily access their information. We will look at the transport sector, because there is a significant amount of importation of used cars in the Gambia, used cars primarily from Asia, from Europe, from America. We will need to assess, those vehicles to try to determine the amount of flame retardants that may be found in the interior articles. There is also PVC pipes, a lot of PVC pipes that are imported from countries like India, countries like China, Asia. We will also need to look at this. There are also, we suspect that there are also a lot of remoldings that are happening, and also scrap metal businesses that are happening. They usually scrap, and when they scrap, they are interested in the metallic components, and then they will dispose of the plastic or the interior components of the plastics. This we will look at it. We have very small, industries in the Gambia, but we will visit all these industries to look at what kind of chemicals, what kind of materials they are producing, where they're importing this information. Although data is a problem in most cases, but that is why, for example, the customs are part of the inventory teams that will be going out. So they will be able to help us to look at import. When it comes to PCBs, we have assessment of PCB in the initial NIP. In the updated NIP, they also did further assessment of PCB. There are PCB contaminated transformers. We're suspecting that pure PCB transformers may be very limited in country, but there has been a detection of contamination. We even have a PCB and UPOPs project, Jeff project currently in the Gambia is closing up. They were able to do a significant amount of assessment. They were able to test. They do field testing of all the transformers that are in country. This is going to be a new information in our current NIP, because when the project started, then we were done with the NIP. The project is actually a post-NIP activity. It was among the activities that are in our action plan. So the project will be able to provide us new insight into PCB situation in the country. So when it comes to UPOPs also, because we still produce electricity from burning heavy fuels, open burning is one of the main source of UPOPs in the Gambia, particularly dioxins and furans, because we do not have landfills in the Gambia. So most of the time we do dumping, in dump sites, and a lot of people are involved in small scale open burning of waste, in households, places. So this is something that we will look at it. And the councils, we have what they call council, local government councils. These are responsible for waste collection. They are also part of the tax team, so they will be able to project to us the amount of waste that they collect, so that we can see how best we can translate these things into how much of this goes into open burning. What we're going to do in this question is that I'm going to break down into two things: our national activities and project-based activities. So we have a legislation, the Hazardous Chemicals and Pesticide Control Management Act. We have three regulations underneath. We have the Hazardous Chemicals Regulation 1999, we have the Pesticide Licensing and Pesticide Registration. So Gambia is very serious when it comes to pesticides. So we have, within my program, we have our regular and routine activities. This requires enforcement, checking the market, what pesticide comes in, pesticide registration, issuance of license. You cannot import pesticides without a license. If you want to trade in pesticides, you have to be licensed as well. We had activities that looks at penalties to take people to court if they default or import pesticides. We do confiscation of pesticides. This is some of the activities that we do. These are daily routine activities within our program. So going further to projects, we have implemented quite a number of projects. We had one time we had a unit of project that was looking at how to train women, sensitize women to stop using compostable materials, for example, that could release UPOPs when they are doing fish smoking and curing. This is something that women use a lot. We did a lot of sensitization. We also had one project that we had with the Senegal Regional Center sometime back from 2018. We updated the legislation. That is the main act, chemical legislation, is in a bill form now. Uh, we also do a lot of sensitization. As I speak to you yesterday, I was involved in a sensitization when Hassan was telling me about scheduling a meeting. We were targeting media groups to teach them on chemical management. So we also have two special program projects, and then these are the special program project addresses chemicals and persistent organic pollutants. We look at also waste. For example, we did our first national chemical profile. We did our first profile on asbestos. This was the first time we drafted a regulation on management of asbestos. Is in a bill form, because passing legislations takes so much time in the Gambia. Both the primary legislation and secondary legislation, they all go through a series of steps. So what some of these projects do for us is to help us develop, review, and update these legislations. Then the office will take up the rest of the activities that we do. So special program one project, we did a lot of activities with regards to training, sensitization on chemicals management nationwide, consultations with stakeholders, farmers, vendors. These are people that sell pesticides. We check labeling requirements, whether they fulfill labeling requirements. We did media sensitization in TVs and radios. We've done all these activities. We developed also national solid waste management strategy from the special program project one, for special program. We are currently implementing another special program that has a component that is dealing with training stakeholders on the implementation of the BRS convention. We have activities like that we'll be implementing very soon. Management of the ULAB, management plan for ULAB. We have activities. We have also sensitization of activities. We also have a standalone project that I told you, the PCB project, which they are concluding right now. There is a follow-up project to that. We call it the French proposal that has been implemented by the UNDP. My predecessor also, from the first NIP to second NIP, also has implemented some projects. And as I speak to you right now, we have another project, we call it with the AFLDC 2 project with the African Development Bank. The project, we have finalized developing the project. They're supposed to sign the project grant form, and then we have activities in it that are to address the implementation of the BRS Convention plus the Minamata Convention. So these are some of the activities, that I can remember of head that we have implemented from the first NIP, second NIP. I was not around in the first NIP, but I participated fully in the second NIP, and then now we are in the third NIP. Yeah. So we have done a significant sensitization. We train farmers, we have consultations with farmers. Shortly before coming to the BRS COP, I was in the field with farmers. Farmers also have their constraints and their challenges. Like we talked about transitioning from current pesticides to alternatives like biopesticides are labor intensive. This is something that farmers talks about. Limitation of materials that they need. This is also a problem for farmers. And another challenge is that pesticides are readily available. Okay, and another one of the challenges also, that there is a very high decline in labor, availability of labor. So farmers rely a lot on herbicides to do the labor intensive work that they would have required to do before. This is also a problem. uh, we also have a problem of uh, low level of awareness, because most of these farmers have not gone to they are not illiterates, but they've not gone through the conventional education system. Okay. So in the Gambia, one thing I've seen, because I've traveled to almost all parts of the country, had meetings with people, some of the problems that they have is that pesticide traders sell pesticides using, uh, is like a pest crop relationship. Okay. Pesticides are traded based on the target species. For example, when you go to a farmer, a trader, when a farmer goes to a trader, he would rather tell the trader that I want a pesticide that can control white flies. Okay? So the farmer knows the pesticide that can control flies, but the trader does not even know what is the active ingredient in this pesticide. We have a problem of, as I told you, the porous border is our biggest problem in the Gambia. Our porous border is our biggest problem. Sometimes the labeling requirements are not fulfilled because the laws of the Gambia is saying that every pesticide, regardless of whatever language that you put there, must have English language as in on its labeling. So sometimes you see a lot of pesticide products with French labeling. If you look at Gambia, it's surrounded by French-speaking countries. This is one problem that we have been having. So some of the farmers cannot read the labels. Okay, some of the farmers do not follow the instruction. Some of the traders that are even selling pesticides, even they don't have license, because most of them are coming from neighboring country. They come in the morning, sell pesticides in the evening. They climb on their cars, on their donkey carts or horse carts, and then go back to our neighboring country. I don't want to mention any name. Okay, so this is some of the problem. So when it comes to finances also, because to do effective enforcement, this requires a lot of resources. Even though our office generates internal funds from collecting licenses for pesticide trade, but so we rely a lot on this enabling in our enforcement efforts. But I can tell you, we have an amazing head of institution who is keen on environmental issues. I'll be frank with you, when it comes to Gambia, Gambia is very keen on environmental issues, particularly when it comes to hazardous chemicals and pesticides. We may not get to where we want to, but we are always trying to put efforts to not stay quiet, but to to be able to uh, uh, put up impacts, So also sometimes when we go out in the field, we it's difficult. Like for example, in the local language, for example, if I have a pesticide product that has a neonicotinoid in it, like for example, imidacloprid, how will a farmer understand what a neonicotinoid is? Yes, these are some constraints that we have, but our porous borders are actually a challenge, and the finances are never enough. So, but we always try to put something in place from our internal resources that we generate, and also from the enabling activity projects, so that we can do something. Yeah.